Hi people, it's Archivist here, and today I'm going to be talking about the map design in Call of Duty Modern Warfare. And this is an interesting video mechanism for me because I just did the audio for this and I listened to myself back and I realised that I was criticising the maps in this game for being overly intricate and having too many angles that you could potentially be shot from, and that as a result it was encouraging overly defensive play. But then I began to realise something, and I was even saying it in the audio, but the thing about this game is, and this extends to not just the general multiplayer but also the Spec Ops mode, is that it's actually quite a hard game, and I think the developers wanted it to be that way. I think they have intentionally made a game that is actually pretty damn hard, but it's not necessarily unfair. It can feel that way at times, just as even games like Dark Souls and Sekiro can feel unfair, but if you really overanalyze every aspect of what led to you dying in a certain situation, you can find ways to overcome it, even if that means thinking, how could I have just not got myself into that particular gunfight at that time? And if you look at some of the maps, there are even secret little passages that you don't see at first, and if you're not aware of those passages, it can make it feel like the map has been designed against you or that it's overly random. But when you realise those options are there, you end up taking them more often and getting yourself into positions where you're at more of an advantage. And I think it's incredibly important to play the map to your weapon. So if you've got an SMG, you need to know how to traverse the map without getting into the long sight lines. You want to always be engaging the enemy at close range. And indeed, in this first bit of gameplay I'm showing you, I was using a P90, and I was always conscious about where I was standing. Am I standing in a long street where someone can shoot me and there's no way that my gun is going to be able to overpower them? Or am I in a close quarters situation where I'm going to be able to hold my own? And it was a tricky game, I can't argue against that. It was a victory on Domination, but it was one where sacrifice was made in order to get there. But through choosing my battles and focusing on only killing or going after kills when I needed to, otherwise just defending or capturing a point, we managed to win. And I was quite happy with that, but it does force a mentality that we have never ever had to adopt with Call of Duty before. If we're playing something like Modern Warfare 2 or COD 4, it often came down to who is the most effective aggressor, who has the ability to react and aim and kill faster than your opponent. In this game, that is certainly an aspect of how you play it, but it's not the defining one. I think what defines victory from loss in this game is positioning. Unfortunately, this does have one negative in my opinion, in that it makes Team Deathmatch incredibly slow. Because in Team Deathmatch, there's no reason you have to move to any element of the map, so it makes sense more than anything just to hide in a building, hunker down, and wait for people to come to you. So that is a disadvantage, and for that reason I do not play Team Deathmatch in Modern Warfare, and I don't think I ever will. But with Domination it's not too bad, because you have to be somewhat aggressive in Domination, because otherwise you'll lose, because you won't capture the B flag, your enemy will get 2 flags and they will win. So if your enemy wants to hide at the back of the map and camp, they can do it, but they're not going to win. In fact, that's sort of what happened in the game I played here. And having said that, I would recommend that if you are a Team Deathmatch player, I would sort of encourage you to migrate onto Domination. I used to be a 100% TDM player myself, but even in past games I did feel that it has this massive inherent weakness in that there is just no incentive to move towards your enemy when they can come to you, but that component is massively exaggerated here, and I could never recommend someone to play TDM for that reason. But when it comes to Domination, the fact that you have to move to the center of the map at some point in order to capture the flag sort of rectifies that issue. I also realized from some personal experience that if you lose your cool while playing, that can be very detrimental to your experience, because it can somewhat encourage you to fall back to old habits and want to run back to get revenge on your enemy. But the moment you start running into combat, you're going to die. If you super sprint, you're not going to stand a chance. Even sprinting can cause you to lose awareness of the situation. And there are some maps, on the larger maps, where you can die moments out of spawn from sniper sightlines, and you have to be careful from the moment you jump back into the map. There is no grace period. The moment you re-enter that match, you are once again fair game. So if we look at this approach, I could not say that these maps are bad, because they're not. They are just designed with a very different kind of play in mind. I will question, however, that the 10v10 maps do feel a bit too big for the player count. I think they could probably stand to make it 14 versus 14, maybe 16 versus 16 for these maps, because if you did that, that would bring it up to a more regular engagement amount. At the moment, there's a little bit too much of just trying to find people, and ultimately it's a shooter and I want to be shooting people, I don't want to be looking for people, and it can be especially egregious when there is this focus on defense, because it can mean that you're very slowly moving up this huge map and not encountering anyone, and when that's punctuated by someone who just happens to be behind you shooting you in the back, not gonna lie, that can be infuriating. So in terms of these 6v6 maps, I think it's an acquired taste, something where there is an intentional difficulty to it, and you do need to adopt a different mindset to even that of the one you probably had playing COD 4. On the 10v10 maps, I do think there is something the developers should do. The actual map design, completely fine, but the player count is too low. I think it could go up to 12v12, 16v16, maybe not any higher than that, but it needs to be a bit higher in order to make those engagements more frequent and more fun. I haven't talked a lot about the 2v2 and ground war maps, but I will just say very quickly, they are completely perfect in my opinion. The two ground war maps play very differently. One is about thinking about elevation, one's, I don't know, just about having fun, right? And the 2v2 maps really suit the overall style of this game as a whole. But I think there is a certain consideration that should be made by IW for the 10v10. So, those have been my thoughts on the maps in Call of Duty Modern Warfare. As always, people, thanks very much for watching, and see you next time.